Good Sunday evening, folks. Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandajis here with you. Yeah, we're talking heat, and some more heat. Pretty much with us all week long. We got into it starting this weekend. Today we clocked in at 93 degrees, our 8th 90-degree day so far this year. And you can see the highs from across the region today. Pretty much everywhere topped out in the 90s, with the exception being Manio, down through the Outer Banks, one of the cooler spots today at 86, hit 93 at Norfolk, 90 at the beach, and 93 out at Suffolk. As I mentioned, we're keeping track of our 90-degree days. We're up to 8 days so far this year. And going back for the entirety of each of the past 5 years, you can see last year we clocked in at 35 days total. And looking at the next 10 days, we're going to be adding a lot more to that tally, as forecast highs are expected to stay north of 90 all the way into the middle of next week. So this heat's not going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately. You see our average high is around 87 or so. So those 90s pretty much take us right into July, into the 4th of July holiday week, with our average highs starting to climb a little bit as we get into early July. They do top out at 90 or so. So we're not going to be all that much above normal by that point in time, but certainly over the next couple of days, we'll be close to 10 degrees above normal for this time of the year. So in terms of records, this doesn't look to be record-breaking or even record-challenging heat. I think the only 2 days that we can maybe overachieve would be tomorrow and on Tuesday, as you'll see we'll be right in the center of this heat dome that's setting on up. The record high for tomorrow is 99, forecast high is 96. On Tuesday, we're into the triple digits for the record high of 101, and the forecast high Tuesday is 97. Now, both tomorrow and Tuesday, we could certainly overperform and run a couple degrees higher, pushing us a little bit closer to those record highs, but I do not foresee us getting into the triple digits. That would certainly be something. And then by the middle of the week, we're nowhere close to records. We'll be in the mid-90s, and records for Wednesday through Friday are up to 100 degrees for all 3 of those days. So let's talk about what is causing all of this heat. Well, it's going to be a heat dome that's setting on up. And what that is a ridge of high pressure, a strong ridge that positions itself over the eastern seaboard. And day by day, the heat starts to compound. And the closer you are to the center of this area of high pressure, you get something called compressional heating. And basically, when you're under an area of high pressure, the air is sinking. That sinking air hits the surface, and you start to get a compressional factor. Compressed air starts to heat up a little bit more effectively. Think about it. Air molecules are bouncing around pretty fast when the air temperatures are high. When you're starting to compress that air, they're bouncing and running into each other. There's more collisions of those air molecules, so air temperatures actually start to go a little bit higher. So that's why I'm saying that tomorrow and Tuesday, we have the best chance at maybe making a run closer to those record highs and overperforming as compared to what the forecast high temperatures are in the mid to upper 90s. So it's a good possibility. So there's a look at the positioning of that area of high pressure tomorrow. And then as we get into Tuesday, notice it doesn't really go anywhere. We'll be pretty much situated right under it. And it's not until the middle of the week we start to see that ridge flatten out a little bit and become a little less amplified. And what that will do is it'll still be hot, but it won't be as excessively hot or extremely hot compared to normal for this time of the year by the end of the week. Still looking at highs in the low to mid 90s. Humidity also is not going anywhere, but the heat should relax a little bit by the later parts of this upcoming week. So that being said, we've got numerous heat alerts up. We had talked about this being a possibility. Our first heat alerts of the 2025 summer season. And we'll start with tomorrow. So heat advisories area-wide. And that's for feels-like temperatures to get up to 105 to as high as 109 for a period of time of at least 3 hours. That's expected to happen tomorrow. Then you look a little farther to the north and west, that maroon coloring, well, that's an extreme heat warning. And that means that those locations are a little bit more likely to see heat index values or feels-like temperatures to get north of 110 degrees. So that's where the heat will really be up into central Virginia. Inland locations will be much, much hotter. They don't have, obviously, the cooling effects of a sea breeze setting on up by mid to late afternoon. So that should help our coastal communities out a little bit. Now, jumping ahead to Tuesday and Wednesday. So our entire areas under heat alerts for the next 3 days. Tuesday and Wednesday, they get a little bit more urgent. So the excessive heat warning stays in place Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for those areas to the north and west. That doesn't change. But what changes Tuesday and Wednesday is the areas that are under a heat advisory are actually upped to an extreme heat watch. And basically, that's just a precursor. They will be upgraded likely to extreme heat warnings, which once again makes the feels like temperature get up to 110 degrees potentially in all of these areas. As I mentioned, the reason why is we'll be under the center, the core of that heat dome, meaning compressional heating is going to be a little bit more likely to help boost those temperatures. And of course, the humidity just a little bit higher. So again, heat alerts up for the entire area Monday through Wednesday. And we're not alone. 200 million folks in the United States are under some sort of heat alert, whether it be a heat advisory, extreme heat watch, extreme heat warning, and it goes all the way up into New England, goes all the way up to the Canadian border. Now, there's something interesting about heat alerts in the U.S. is that the criteria is not the same everywhere. Of course, when you're down in the South, you're a little bit more used to extreme heat values. So the threshold is a little bit higher to enable a heat alert to be issued. You can see what the various criteria are for just a heat advisory across different parts of the country, depending on where you're located. So we've got up in the north in New England, you've got feels like temperatures that have to get up to only 95, okay, to get a heat advisory. Down here, we'd be nowhere close to that. Of course, here locally, it's 105 degrees or hotter to get an activated heat advisory. Up in the northern parts of the U.S., you see the orange shading there. We're getting up to around 100 for the feels like temperature, the heat index value. And of course, down in the deep south, the Gulf Coast, you have to get all the way up to 108, perhaps 110 degrees to just get a baseline heat advisory to be issued. So it depends on where you're located. It's not just a flat rule across the entire U.S. for a heat alert, or heat advisory, I should say. So let's talk about those feels like temperatures, those feels like temperatures coming our way. We'll start things off tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. This is Futurecast. This is going to be our short-range, high-resolution rendition of what the solution is for some of these feels like temperature values going through the peak heating of the day. So 11 a.m. tomorrow, we're already feeling like 103. In Chesapeake, 104 up to West Point. Look at Richmond, 103, 101 in Virginia Beach. Then we jump into mid-afternoon. Okay, we're at the 106, possibly out at Newport News, 105 Virginia Beach, so satisfying the heat advisory criteria there. 106 Chesapeake, perhaps as high as 108 in places like Ahoskie over to Emporia. Now we get a little bit of some relief. I mean, still feeling like it's in the upper 80s to near 90 through the overnight time frame. And then we jump into Tuesday. Here we are at lunchtime. Everybody already feeling like the triple digits by this point. Melfa 105, same in Newport News, 108 Franklin. Edenton perhaps as high as 105, 106 at Chesapeake, 103 out at Virginia Beach. And this isn't even the peak heating of the day. Jump ahead to later in the afternoon, early evening, 107 Chesapeake, 109. Ahoskie, 108 Emporia, Richmond, 105, same at Norfolk. Elizabeth City feels as hot as 104 degrees out at Virginia Beach. And then we jump ahead all the way into Wednesday. Should be a little bit better. By 1:30 in the afternoon, though, we're still feeling as hot as 111 in Ahoskie, 103 out at Virginia Beach. Now, you notice some spots there that show a brief cool down. Now, that's mirroring is the possibility, well, at least this model thinks so, of by Wednesday we could see the possibility of some air mass thunderstorms boiling on up. And if we do see that, there would certainly be some areas that get some brief relief from the heat, thanks to rain, cool air, and some of these isolated, I mean very isolated, potential for a thunderstorm Wednesday afternoon. And that really looks to be about the only rain chance that we've got in the next 7 days or so. So with the heat coming our way, it's pretty much in place now. Here's something to keep a lookout in terms of heat dangers, heat illnesses, and the symptoms of those. So heat exhaustion, there's several symptoms here. And a lot of times they're kind of obvious. Faint or dizzy, you have excessive sweating, cool, pale, clammy skin, rapid, weak pulse, and you've got muscle cramps. Those are signs of heat exhaustion. Now, heat stroke, which is much more serious, throbbing headache, no sweating, so your body has now become void of being able to produce sweat. Big problem. Body will easily overheat. Red, hot, dry skin, rapid, strong pulse, and you may even lose consciousness. So if you're out and about, you work outdoors for a living, so this is our first run-in this season with heat like this. So just be aware of the symptoms, and if you notice it, take action. Get hydrated, get to a cool, shady area, drink water, lots of it if you're conscious. Take a cool shower, use cold compresses. You want to bring that body temperature down as quickly as you can. And of course, if you notice any of the symptoms of a heat stroke, you just need to call 911 because that is a medical emergency. All right, National Weather Service puts out new products. They've got experimental products out there and new products that they'll release to the public. And this is one that highlights the heat risk. Basically, that is the risk for heat-related illnesses and the risk for, just impacts from excessively hot temperatures. So today we were at, you can see the key in the top right there, major heat risk we had. Jumping ahead to tomorrow, Monday, we're up to extreme heat risk. Tuesday, extreme heat risk. Wednesday, a little bit more sporadic, but still extreme through most of Hampton Roads in northeastern North Carolina. And we don't start to see the heat really back off in terms of the risk until Thursday and even a little bit on Friday and into the weekend. We're still up to major to extreme heat impacts here. So it's going to be long duration. I mean, if we get power outages for some reason, the grid is just overwhelmed with all the air conditioners humming, that's going to be a big issue. Because that's obviously a main way that folks keep cool in scenarios like this. Hospitals, assisted living facilities, older folks, those that are more vulnerable to this type of weather, get a little bit more impacted and can be a little more vulnerable to those heat-related illnesses. So just keep that in mind. Extreme heat risk pretty much for all of this week. Now, currently, temperatures have fallen back from our highs. It's a little bit more comfortable now. We're about an hour past sunset. We're into the mid-80s out at Norfolk now. 81 over at Currituck, 81 Smithfield, 78 out at Chesapeake, 86 Hampton, 80 at Elizabeth City. But we've still got our dew points that are in the 70s. And as air temperatures come down, dew points come up a little bit in the overnight time frame, it is still very, very uncomfortable. And that's another thing when we get these prolonged heat events. You don't really get a whole ton of relief from the heat at night. So if this was, say, earlier in the season, we get a day or two of 90 or so, you can open up the windows at night and let some of the cooler air in because we'd be more efficient at cooling things down. And that's why I also say that during these types of events, it's compounding effects because the heating every day just compounds our overnight lows staying warmer and warmer because the ground is heating up, holding on to some of that heat a little bit more efficiently. So when you get those dew points up too, we just don't get rid of that heat very easily at night. So even this hour, at Newport News, it still feels like it's in the lower 90s. 91 is the feels like temperature. Look at Portsmouth. It feels like it's 98 out the door right now. 90 at the beach, 94 out at Williamsburg, and it still feels like 90 this hour out at Hampton. So even in the overnight time frame, we'll get our feels like temperatures to get into the upper 80s to near 90 degrees, even in the dead of night with sunrise and sunset hours away and nothing really heating things up. It's just holding on to that heat of the day. Let's talk about the humidity because that's not going anywhere anytime soon. Our dew points, how we measure the amount of moisture in the atmosphere, when they get up north of 70, it feels oppressively humid outside. That's what it was today, and that's what it's expected to be hovering around for days to come. Now, something that also tends to happen a lot of the times when we get these very hot afternoons, sometimes if we get a sea breeze to mix on in or just overall a breeze kicks in, it'll start to mix down drier air, lower dew points from aloft. If that happens, that would tend to lower our feels like temperature in the afternoon. We get a little bit, you'll notice it, it'll feel just a little bit less oppressive in the afternoon if we do start to mix down some of these lower dew points. And that's been discussed. National Weather Service talked about this being a possibility both tomorrow afternoon and Tuesday afternoon, but it's not a guarantee. It's just a possibility that it could occur. But during most of the daylight hours, we'll have our dew points around 70 or so and not really showing any signs of dipping, no real pronounced cold front coming our way to bring any monumental relief, at least in the short term. Let's walk through Futurecast now. So we've got tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. already in the upper 70s. Some spots I wouldn't doubt they're already at 80 degrees. A west wind or a northwest wind setting on up by early in the afternoon. Now, normally it'd say, well, that's going to bring down some cooler air. Not the case this time because to our north and west is actually even hotter. Inland temperatures to our north and west, up towards the nation's capital, will probably be in the upper 90s to near 100 degrees tomorrow. Meanwhile, here, we'll be in the mid-90s. So kind of backwards, right? So we get a wind coming from that direction that's actually blowing in some hotter air, not cooler this time around as we're in the center of that dome of high pressure, right? So here we are by lunchtime. This model is a little bit aggressive on the heat. Could it be right? Sure. Could we overperform? Sure. But it has already in the past couple of days kind of overdone temperatures a little bit. So we'll take this with a grain of salt and we'll probably verify 2, 3, 4 degrees cooler than what you're seeing on these numbers. So by lunchtime tomorrow, models say we'll be in the mid-90s already, okay? We go into the afternoon, models here want to flirt with 100 degrees. If winds go due calm and this happens before a sea breeze sets up, it's possible. I'm not forecasting that, but we can certainly overperform and temperatures get a little bit hotter. So upper 90s a good bet tomorrow afternoon, and then into tomorrow night, you see by 2 in the morning, we're still sitting at 80 degrees, okay? And then into Tuesday morning, same sort of thing. We start off mild. By lunchtime, upper 90s already. And we get into the afternoon, models once again want to flirt with triple digits. And 5 o'clock or so, we're at 97, 98, maybe some spots inland 99, certainly up to Richmond, a good possibility we get that without any influence of sea breezes there. And then even into Wednesday morning, Wednesday lunchtime, we're still back into the mid to upper 90s. And notice by this point in time, to our west, we're starting to see a few of those air mass thunderstorms develop. You see those out by I-95 and I-85? Maybe those will set up a little farther to the east, and we'll get in on some of that action. Fingers crossed. But right now, next 3 days look very, very dry. But that would be our only hope for maybe getting a little bit of some relief coming our way there. Okay, so as we wrap things up in summary, heat has arrived. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, so buckle up. I mean, this isn't, I want to kind of manage our expectations here. We're not expecting record-shattering heat. This is not going to go down in the record books as one of the worst heat waves ever. Okay, it's not. It's going to be hot. It's our first real heat wave of the summer. So that's why it's impactful. We're just not kind of accustomed to it yet. We have the compounding effects, as I talked about. Day in and day out, we don't really get much relief in the overnight hours, so it's going to be oppressively hot 4 days, and that'll wear on the body. And maybe, just maybe, next weekend we start to see temperatures come back down. And as we get towards the start of July, that's when our temperatures, our average highs that time of year, are around 90 anyway. So 90-degree day highs in the afternoon are nothing special. It's just right now will be about 10 to 11 degrees above normal for this time of the year at this point in June. So a good place to be tomorrow, maybe you're going to the beach. Not bad at all. Even at the waterfront, still getting into the 90s. Lots of sunshine. And as we've been talking about, we just came off of the summer solstice on Friday. Highest sun angle of the year. We're still very, very high. The sun angle has not come down much in 2 days. And it won't for a while. So sunburn happening 15 minutes if you're not protected, especially in the middle parts of the day. So very high UV index tomorrow, 10, 11, highest it goes. Water temperature, very refreshing. I was out at the beach yesterday, Cape Henry area. Water temperature, I'll tell you what, was much higher than 77. It felt like it was in the low 80s. It was very, very comfortable, yet still refreshing. Surf height looking okay and no rip current risk. So beach, good place to be as long as you're seeking some shade, staying hydrated, and of course applying that sunscreen to avoid any big sunburns. But here's a look at that extended forecast. We've got a lot of heat on the way for the next several days, right on through the next 7, really. That's going to kind of just be compounding day in and day out. We have NBA Finals on TV right now, so we will be on a little bit late tonight. So I wanted to jump on here and give you a little bit of an in-depth explanation of what we're going to be expecting over the next 7 days, even longer potentially, across Hampton Roads. But we will come on after the finals wrap on up. Tonight, probably closer to 11:30 or so on the TV side on 13 News Now. So I hope you join me then. We'll have updates to the forecast and a brand new run of computer models as well to share with you. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Sunday.